Mythology Trivia Speed Round 2. Track how many questions you can get right. Question: which 9 goddesses inspired art, literature, and science in ancient Greece? The answer is the Muses. Fun fact: each muse had a specialty, from epic poetry to astronomy, making them the original creative team. Question: which god fell in love with his own reflection and turned into a flower? The answer is Narcissus. Fun fact: the narcissus flower, daffodil, was said to bloom where he died. Question: which Greek god of the sun was often confused with Helios, though he was primarily the god of music and prophecy? The answer is Apollo. Fun fact: Apollo is one of the few gods whose name stayed the same in Roman mythology. Question: which sea monster guarded the narrow straits opposite the whirlpool Charybdis? The answer is Scylla. Fun fact: sailors trying to avoid one often fell prey to the other, hence the phrase between Scylla and Charybdis. Question: which Roman god is equivalent to the Greek god Zeus? The answer is Jupiter. Fun fact: the name Jupiter comes from Dies Pater, meaning Sky Father, just like Zeus's title in Greek. Question: which legendary ship carried Jason and his crew on their quest for the Golden Fleece? The answer is the Argo. Fun fact: the crew was called the Argonauts, heroes including Orpheus and Hercules. Question: what punishment did Oedipus inflict upon himself? The answer is he blinded himself. Fun fact: he used the pins from Yocasta's dress to gouge out his eyes. Question: who tricked the goddess Demeter into eating pomegranate seeds, binding her to the underworld? The answer is Hades. Fun fact: Persephone ate 6 seeds, which is why she spends 6 months each year below. Question: which Roman god corresponds to Poseidon? The answer is Neptune. Fun fact: Neptune's name means moist in Latin, fitting for a sea god. Question: which creature lured sailors to their doom with beautiful singing voices? The answer is sirens. Fun fact: Odysseus had his crew plug their ears with wax so he could safely listen to their song. Question: which hero slew Medusa and later saved Andromeda from a sea monster? The answer is Perseus. Fun fact: after defeating Medusa, he used her head as a weapon, even turning Atlas into stone. Question: who was the greatest warrior of Troy during the war? The answer is Hector. Fun fact: Hector was known for his honor and bravery, even as he faced Achilles. Question: what animal is sacred to Poseidon and said to have been created by him? The answer is the horse. Fun fact: Poseidon struck the earth with his trident to create the first horse, linking him to both sea and stallion. Question: which mortal hero was dipped in the river Styx by his mother to make him nearly invincible? The answer is Achilles. Fun fact, she held him by the heel, the only part untouched by the magical waters, creating what would become his legendary Achilles heel. Question: what king unknowingly killed his father and married his mother? The answer is Oedipus. Fun fact, his name means swollen foot, from the injuries he sustained as a baby when abandoned. Question: the Temple of Apollo at Delphi was famous for what mystical figure? The answer is the Oracle of Delphi. Fun fact, the oracle's prophecies were delivered by a priestess called the Pythia. Question: what was the name of the ferryman who carried souls across the river Styx? The answer is Charon. Fun fact, the dead had to pay him with a coin placed in their mouth at burial, the origin of Charon's obol. Question: how long did the Trojan War last? The answer is 10 years. Fun fact, combined with Odysseus's journey, he was gone from home for 20. Question: who was Medea's husband? The answer is Jason. Fun fact, Jason abandoned Medea to marry Glaucia, a Corinthian princess. Question: which Greek nymph was cursed to only repeat others' words? The answer is Echo. Fun fact, her name lives on in the scientific term for sound reflection. Question: what was the name of the monster with 9 regenerating heads slain by Hercules? The answer is the Hydra. Fun fact, every time he cut off one head, 2 grew back, until he cauterized the stumps with fire. Question: which Greek god of fire and craftsmanship forged Zeus's thunderbolts alongside the Cyclopes? The answer is Hephaestus. Fun fact, he was the only Olympian considered physically imperfect, yet married to Aphrodite. Question: which famous beauty's face was said to have launched 1,000 ships? The answer is Helen of Troy. Fun fact, her abduction by Paris led directly to the Trojan War and countless epic tales. Question: which god chained Prometheus to a rock as punishment for stealing fire? The answer is Zeus. Fun fact, the eagle that tormented Prometheus was eventually slain by Hercules as one of his labors. Question: which Greek hero blinded the Cyclops Polyphemus? The answer is Odysseus. Fun fact, he escaped by clinging beneath sheep and famously told the Cyclops his name was Nobody. Thanks for watching. Comment below to let us know how many questions you got right. If you like this video, tap like, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and share with friends. See you in the next video.